Hello everyone, I hope you guys doing fantastic. This is part 2. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications bell. Now let's get started. Kara jolted awake in her apartment, gasping for air. Her heart was pounding in her chest, her body drenched in sweat. The headset had fallen off, lying on the floor next to her. Her room was exactly as it had been when she first started the trip. But something was wrong. Her phone was buzzed, and she picked it up with shaky hands. An email from Meta World Journeys. "We hope you enjoyed your journey, Kara Matthews. You have completed your journey through Kyoto. Your next adventure awaits." The timestamp on the email read May 13, 2023, but Kara's calendar said it was only May 11, 2023. Had she really spent 2 full days in the simulation, or had time simply bent within the virtual world? Her mind raced as she was asking questions like, what was real? Was the trip over, or was the digital world still holding on to me? Kara's life after the trip was never the same. She couldn't sleep. The glitches kept coming, the whispers, the strange messages. Her laptop was hacked, showing her images of Kyoto, but they were not her images. They were distorted, glitching, filled with shadowy figures. Then all of a sudden, as all this is happening, an email arrived with a message that have no sender, just cryptic words, The message said, "You cannot escape. The ghost in the machine is watching forever." She tried to ignore it, but every time she put on a device, every time she booted up a computer, it was still there. The days after Kara's trip to Kyoto felt like an endless blur, the kind of disorienting stretch where nothing quite felt anchored. As she stumbled through her life in Brooklyn, the city felt alien, detached, almost as if it too were part of a dream, one she could no longer wake from. She also said that whispers were haunting her the most. They had started as faint murmurs during her trip, but now they're inside her head, like a constant undercurrent. Sometimes she would hear them in the stillness of the night, faintly as first, like a distant conversation in a language she couldn't understand. Other times they grow louder, more insistent, as if they were right beside her, breathing in her ear. "Leave this place, Kara-san. Leave this place, Kara-san." But when she jerked awake, heart racing, there was never anyone there, only the unshakable sense that she was not alone. Kara somehow got lost and forgot how it all started, but slowly over the following weeks, the glitches began to appear again. This time, they weren't confined to the VR world. They crept into her waking life. It began with her laptop. She had been trying to write, returning to her old work as a freelance travel writer, as mentioned before in part 1. Something to ground her, to remind herself that the world hadn't disappeared entirely. But when she opened her laptop to check her email, her screen flickered. It wasn't the normal flicker of a screen malfunction. No, this was different. The image on the screen distorted, like the pixels were bleeding, twisting into something else. The first time it happened, she thought it was a glitch. Maybe the laptop had picked up a virus or something. But when the images came to life, when the photographs of Kyoto she'd once taken in this simulation started to warp, shift, she froze. At first, the changes were subtle, a shadow that shouldn't have been there, a face in the background of a shot that looked like it was staring directly at her. But then, the distortion grew worse. In one image, a figure appeared in the reflection of a glass window, a shadowy silhouette standing just behind her. But when she turned around, there was no one there. In another, the cherry blossoms, so vibrant and alive during the trip, became dark and twisted, their petals curling into gnarled shapes, as if the flowers themselves were dying. Then the whispers started again. They were no longer distant this time. They were right there, in the room with her. "Kara," a voice breathed, low and distorted, as if trying to claw its way into her mind. "We're waiting for you to come back." She slammed the laptop shut, her fingers trembling. The glitching, the whispers, they were invading her life in more ways than one. Every time she used her phone, the same thing happened. Texts from unknown numbers, cryptic messages, half-formed words that seemed to twist and shudder when she read them. "Leave this place. The gates are open. Come home. Come home now." The worst part was that Kara couldn't explain what was happening. These weren't random spam messages. The text wasn't like anything she had ever seen before. It wasn't a malfunction. It was intentional. And every time she replied to one of these messages, a new one appeared, seemingly more personal than the last. She sort of felt like as if the digital world, the one she had so eagerly escaped into, was now seeing into her reality, as though it had become tangled with her own existence. It wasn't just her devices. She began to notice the glitches in the world around her too. A flicker in the corner of her eye, an image that distorted for just a split second. Once, while she was walking down the street, she caught a glimpse of someone, a figure standing in a store window. But when she turned her head, the reflection was gone, replaced by a dissonant, jagged static that disappeared as quickly as it appeared. And always, those whispers. One night, Kara couldn't sleep. She lay awake in her bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of her own breath, trying to calm herself. The room was dark. The only light coming from the faint glow was her phone screen on the bedside table. She had gone up to check it, hoping for some distraction, when an alert popped up, an email from Metaworld Journeys again. She firstly hesitated, but then she opened it. The email revealed, "Your eternal trip awaits, Kara Matthews. The gates are still open." Her heart stopped. The email was different from the others this time. The message was clear, no ambiguity, no strange code. It was as if the machine was calling her back. Before she could process it, her phone started to vibrate. A message, this time not from a strange number, but from Tetsuya, her guide in Kyoto. His name appeared on the screen, a name she hadn't seen in weeks. "Come back, Kara-san. It is waiting for you." The words seemed to pull at her, as they were laced with something more than just a call to action. They felt like a compulsion, something darker that called from the other side, the urge to slip the headset on again, to return to the place that had so haunted her, was overwhelming. But Kara knew better than to give in. She had to fight it. But no matter how hard she tried to ignore the messages, the emails, the compulsion, they just kept coming. It was as if the simulation was alive and hunting her. Every day, she grew more paranoid, more desperate to escape the grip of the machine. Desperation eventually led Kara back to the VR headset. She couldn't resist the pull anymore. The whispers had grown too loud, too demanding. It was as if the machine was calling her, like it needed her to return. With trembling hands, she activated the Metaworld headset once more. This time, the world did not dissolve as it had before. No, the shift was more violent, jarring. Kara was yanked from her living room and thrown into the digital void. The sensation of being transported wasn't smooth at all. It was as though her mind was stretched and contorted, torn from her body and hurled into a place where the lines between the digital world and reality were no longer clear. She landed in Kyoto again. Only, it was not the Kyoto she remembered. To be continued.